The Newland House was built in 1898 by Huntington Beach pioneers William Taylor Newland and Mary Juanita Delap Newland. The house was built on what is believed to be the site of the Tongva village, La Coupa. In the 1880s, William and Mary Newland moved with their 3 children from Illinois to Half Moon Bay in Northern California. Half Moon Bay was far too damp and foggy for the young family, so they relocated south to a small farm in the now infamous city of Compton. After a chance meeting with the Irvine family, owners of one of the largest private ranches in U.S. history, William Newland was hired to manage the farm portion of their operation. The family lived on the Irvine Ranch until the mid-1890s, and once they had enough money saved, they set off to start a ranch of their very own. With the help of a nearby rancher named Colonel Robert Northam, the Newlands bought 500 acres of land at an average cost of $31 per acre, or $1,180 in today's money. It was on this land that they would build their now iconic home. At the time, the closest town was Santa Ana, which was a full day's buggy ride away. The Newland farm was so remote, the family had a bedroom set aside to house travelers passing through, since there were no hotels or lodging houses in the area. I guess you can say the Newland House was also Huntington Beach's first Airbnb. The house is a Queen Anne-style Victorian farmhouse and was the first residence built in the city of Huntington Beach, and was built at a cost of $1,485, or $56,500 in today's money. It's easy to be impressed with the relatively low price tag compared to today's prices, but keep in mind the original house was much smaller than it stands today. The Newlands would eventually have 10 children, and many additions were added to the home over the years to accommodate the expanding family. The house was built without running water or a well. For the first 2 years, water had to be fetched from a well that was located some distance from the house and was carried by hand in wooden buckets. In 1900, a well was dug just outside the home, along with the water tower and windmill. They referred to their fields as the bottomland. This land was located in the old Santa Ana riverbed, which made it ideal for farming, but before they could till it, it had to be cleared of brush and other marsh plants. Once the land was cleared, They planted lima beans, sugar beets, celery, and chili peppers. Once the farm was operational, they would employ between 10 and 50 workers, depending on the season and the needs of the farm. In addition to the acres of crops, the family also used the land to raise cows, chickens, turkeys, goats, horses, and peacocks. The original barn is no longer standing, but it once stood where there is now a grocery store and a parking lot. The barn currently on the property was built in 1983. The Newland family was instrumental in the early days of the city of Huntington Beach. William Newland would start the city's first bank and newspaper. He was also involved in the sale of the first lots in town. Mary Newland served on the Huntington Beach School Board for 16 years. She also founded the township's first parent-teacher organization in 1908. She was a charter member of the Huntington Beach Women's Club, and in 1939 she was named Woman of the Year for her dedication and service to the community. Both William and Mary would live in their house until their deaths. William died in 1933 at the age of 83, and Mary passed away in 1952 at the age of 93. After Mary's death, the property was sold to Signal Oil and Gas. Signal Oil originally planned to use the property for an oil refinery, but community outrage forced them to drop those plans. Instead, the company formed the Signal Landmark Development Company and built the shopping center that stands there today in the early 1980s. As far back as 1964, a community effort to preserve the Newland House as a historical landmark and museum began and led to the formation of the Huntington Beach Historical Society. In 1974, Signal Landmark donated the Newland House and associated land to the city of Huntington Beach for a historical park. They did this in order to gain favor with the community and obtain approval to build homes on former Newland farmland. The initial restoration was done entirely by the Historical Society and used mostly volunteer labor and local donations. But the old building needed a lot more work than the Historical Society could provide. In 1983, the city of Huntington Beach committed $400,000, or $1.2 million in today's money, for the stabilization and preservation of the home, including infrastructure for water, sewage, and electricity. In the same year, the city spent $272,000 or $860,000 in today's money to build the barn that stands on the property to this day. The barn was built as public event space to generate revenue to support the Newland House property. The Newland barn is a popular site for weddings, birthday parties, and other events, and is booked months in advance. The barn generates an average of more than $50,000 per year. The Huntington Beach Historical Society improved the property further by building the backyard gazebo and reconstructing the iconic water tower, as well as restoring the south side garden. As a small historical Easter egg, they lined the garden path with bricks rescued from the demolition of the Holly Sugar Factory, a nearby sugar processing plant built in 1911. City residents wanted to save the factory for adapted reuse, but it was demolished with little warning. To many, the Newland House is just an old house in the middle of a shopping center, most giving it little thought as they pass on their way to buy groceries, grab a bite to eat, or take a stroll through the nearby Bartlett Park. But to others, it's a moment frozen in time, a reminder of what life was like before the hustle and bustle discovered the beauty of one of the most desirable locations in Southern California. The Newland House was added to the National Register of Historic Places in 1985 and can be toured on the first and third weekend of each month from 8 a.m. until noon for a suggested donation of $2 per person. I would like to thank the Huntington Beach Historical Society for their decades of dedication to preserving one of the city's most important homes.